The House Justice Committee is resuming its hearing on the NBP drug trade on Wednesday next week. What are lawmakers learning and what's the point of the probe? We speak now to two members of the House Justice Committee. Congressman Harry Roque and Congressman Ramon Rocamora, thank you for joining us.
My privilege.
Pleasure.
There's been two hearings so far at the House of Representatives. What's your assessment so far?
Very tiring. The first time it was 11 hours. The second time it was in excess of 8 hours. No? I'm used to marathon hearings as a litigator, but I guess it's more tiring when you only have 10 minutes to ask your questions and you have to wait for your turn on you. No? But I'm still happy because quite a number of people were able to give their testimonies. There were no less than 8 individuals who testified, and we now have a very good picture of what goes on. No? Behind bars, ironically, in Muntinlupa, as far as the drug trade is concerned.
Congressman, what about you?
It was a bit frustrating for me. I practiced law as a public prosecutor for 24 years. And when I go to court, I'm used to certain procedures to follow. But of course, in these committee hearings, we don't. So
You have your own rules there.
yeah, definitely yes.
Well, it's good that we actually have both gentlemen who are also both lawyers. Let me go to a point, Congressman Rocamora, that you made. You already said that some of the witnesses' testimonies are plain hearsay. You are referring to at least two of them, Hanstan and Jaime Pacho. Let's listen to, well, a brief part of their testimony.
Okay.
Ang boses ni G.B. Sebastian sa maximum compound, Your Honor, ay parang batas po, Your Honor.
Napakalakas niya kaya kanino?
Kay Secretary Laila de Lima ho.
What were your thoughts when you heard both gentlemen, Congressman?
Well, there's no question that their testimony might be good to establish that there is in fact this drug activities inside the penitentiary. No question about it. But as to whether it can link Senator De Lima, I don't think it's enough. It's just, as I've said, it's hearsay. So far, I'm talking about these two gentlemen, who testified. I mean, were there 3 or 4? The second
There
hearing.
were about 9, I believe.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there were about 9. But on the other hand, Attorney Harry Roque thinks otherwise. You were quoted as saying that you feel that the evidence is strong against Senator Laila de Lima.
Yes, there were 2 people who personally delivered money to the residence of Laila de Lima. In one instance, they saw Laila de Lima receive the bag containing the cash from Mr. Dayan. And that, to me, is not hearsay. Now, there were about 40-plus congressmen who tested the credibility of these 2 individuals. And we are all satisfied that the money delivery did happen. Then you ask the question, number 1, where did the money come from? No? Now, you take the testimony of the witnesses to provide you the answer of how possibly the money came to the hands of the NBI agent. No? And you conclude from their testimonies that there really is a system within Muntinlupa, no? where individuals are made to trade drugs, and there's a established system on how they remit the money. No? There's an established system on how much you pay the Bucor director, how much you pay the ordinary prison guard in exchange for privileges. No? And the fact that many of the witnesses were very candid about their privileges. You know, this guy Kulanco, no? We were dying in our seats because he was too honest. We found him entertaining. No? That he was saying part of the privileges is being able to say, to sell truckloadfuls of beer. Which he buys for 700 pesos and sells for 10,000. Women that he pays money to equivalent to 25,000, which he in turn trades for 75,000 or even more. No? And of course, you ask yourself, no, why are these things happening in Muntinlupa if not because of money, protection money, bribe money that these inmates are paying? And then you ask the next question, where would they derive this much money to give to the prison officials? Then that's where the drug trade comes in. So in other words...
But you're thinking that far off. I mean, far ahead, rather. Right?
I don't know if it's far ahead, but as I said earlier, we now have a very good and coherent picture of what happens in Muntinlupa. Now remember, this was never intended to be the trial for Laila de Lima. As lawyers, we know that there's no way we can convict her. Only a court of law can do that. It is an investigation in aid of legislation into the drug trade of within Muntinlupa. And Laila de Lima became relevant because the witnesses said that they were made to sell drugs by an acknowledged leader in the prison who is ultimately the lone contact of Secretary Laila de Lima within Muntinlupa.
But I'd like to get your thoughts, both gentlemen, on what Senator Laila de Lima was saying, that these are perjured witnesses, that they were pressured by Secretary Vit Aguirre to point at Laila de Lima as in the middle of this drug trade and receiving drug money. Congressman, what do you think of that?
Well, what can I say? These are convicts and serving sentences. Actually, they have nothing to lose but everything to gain. You look at the credibility of the witness, and of course, we know that these are convicted prisoners for kidnapping, for murder, and as I've said, they have nothing to lose but everything to gain. I'm not saying that, this is so, but this thought will always come into mind, and even for the rest of the public.
Are you still keeping an open mind on the alleged link of Senator Laila de Lima to the drug trade?
As I've said, when I mentioned about it being hearsay, I was talking about referring to the witnesses during the second hearing,
Yeah.
the ones that I interpolated. My good friend here mentioned of the witnesses who said that they actually brought the money to the house of de Lima and saw her take the bag. That's direct evidence. That's not hearsay. But again, the question is credibility. Whether it's strong or not, that's for the courts later on to determine.
Congressman Roque, you went as far as even saying that Senator Laila de Lima should resign because she's, ruining the institution that, you both belong to different, you're at the lower house, she's at the Senate, but you were saying she should resign.
Well, the problem is even if these are convicts, and despite jurisprudence that we should be very careful in taking their word as gospel truth, what we're inquiring upon is what goes on behind the National Penitentiary. So if what we're talking about is what happens in decent villages, perhaps their statements would be tainted. But we want to know exactly what is happening amongst the inmates. Who do you believe on an issue involving the inmates? Third parties or the inmates themselves?
You're talking about the New Bilibid prison.
Yes.
There was a riot over there. What are your thoughts on that? Did it come as a surprise? And one camp is saying, I'm not going to gain from JB Sebastian being injured. The other camp is saying, I'm not going to gain from JB Sebastian being injured either. What are your thoughts, Congressman?
Actually, you could look at three camps here. Of course, the camp of de Lima and the opposing camp. And the third camp is, of course, the syndicate. And as far as de Lima is concerned, of course, the natural thinking would be she would be benefited because, after all, JB Sebastian is a witness against her. Okay? Syndicates might not want him to testify because he's liable to spell out the mechanics of the activity inside and name persons. As far as the other side of de Lima, I just heard from the interview of the lawyer of JB Sebastian that he does not want to testify. He does not want to testify because his testimony might be inconsistent with those that had already been given.
Correct. That's what the lawyer said.
So, why would the camp against de Lima want him to testify?
Does it become a little bit confusing, I asked Congressman Ray Umali that, on this JB Sebastian testimony?
Well, to me, I can only go by what the facts are. I was told that when we resume our investigation, J.B. Sebastian will appear in the House. There was some kind of commotion within the Muntinlupa. J.B. Sebastian, who was supposed to appear in the House, was stabbed. He's supposed to be critically ill because of it, and he may not be able to appear in the House. So the only conclusion I derive from the facts is there could be people who don't want J.B. Sebastian
Yes.
to testify.
And who do you think that would be?
Well, right now, my impression is J.B. Sebastian will only confirm everything that the witnesses have said. In fact, his testimony would not be indispensable because at least 6 witnesses already implicated him. So to me, either he denies or admits. If he denies it, it doesn't mean much because 6 other individuals said otherwise. But if he confirms it, then Laila de Lima's fate will be sealed. So my position is, let's look into that angle. I'm not accusing because everything would be speculative, but if I were an investigator, that would really be an angle that I would pursue.
Congressman Rocamora and Congressman Harry Roque, sir, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.